Right, hello everyone, and welcome back to All Talk Scottish Premiership. As you can see, I'm myself this week, thanks to Shay just abandoning me, basically. It seems to be as if we're taking turns to do this. I left him high and dry a couple of weeks ago, and now it's my turn. To be fair, it is Shay's birthday, so we've kind of got to give him the kind of courtesy this time to not be here. So I went for being a guest on the show to co-host to now hosting it myself. So eventually I will be taking over the company. I think that is the next natural progression. To start with the games, again, we always do start with the old fun, whether we like it or not. And I think it is because it's just so much turmoil. But I think I kind of want to start with the leaders this week. I think McInnes going back to Kilmarnock was a real test for them. Obviously, they've beat Ibrox, they've got Parkhead next week, but McInnes going back to the side that he left to go to Hearts. Um, Obviously, quite a lot of bad blood between himself and Kilmarnock now, despite taking them, to a top four finish in Europe. Going to AstroTurf on a Saturday night, knowing that you're kind of already at a stage with Hearts, which is mental to say we're only a handful of games in, that it kind of needs to be a must win. We've seen it with Aberdeen last season, they kind of opening 11 and 12 games are absolutely flying, but then it starts to drop off, and that's the problem with trying to stay top of the table in Scotland. For anyone that isn't a Rangers Celtic, it's great at the start. It's good on Hearts, good on Aberdeen, whoever it may be. They're getting results you don't really expect. It's when the pressure starts to mount, and Hearts have put themselves in a position, obviously, with the result on Sunday, which I'll get on to later on. They're 8 points clear. That, sorry, that they're 5 points clear. They will be eight if they win at the weekend. They've put themselves in such a good position. We both myself and Shay tipped them at the start of the season to win some form of silverware under McInnes. We thought that the Tony Bloom coming in, we thought the recruitment strategy, and just with how good a manager McInnes is, that he would deliver silverware. They then go to the League Cup, and the prediction starts to look a bit, I wouldn't say ridiculous, but it seems to be a long shot, because you are then going where they need to either win the Scottish, which is doable, or win the league. And I think we'd kind of jokingly said about the league and said there's absolutely no chance. Well, there definitely is. Um, I mean, you're looking at the likes of, again, I kind of touched on the recruitment there. Braga, like he's an absolute joke. They brought him in for pittance, absolute pittance, and his and Kizidis look as if they're the real deal. Again, you're looking at the other side, you're looking into Glasgow, and you're going at £8 million, £9 million on Shermity, £11 million on Engels. So there's money being spent in the league now, and you're not seeing a return. Whereas Hearts invested extremely intelligently. Obviously, it helps with the system they've got in place. Having Jamestown there is the analytics. Obviously, it massively helps. But you've got to start. When do you start taking Hearts seriously in this title race? And I think it starts this weekend. They play Celtic. If they win that, eh, I wouldn't say it's their league to lose, because again it is early, but they are putting themselves in a very, very strong situation. Um, Again, like I say, going away to Kilmarnock's no easy feat, and to run away with it in the sense of 3-0 when Kilmarnock were pushing kind of top three, top four again this season. Again, it is early, but they've still got to beat what's in front of you. It doesn't matter how many games we're in. So you look at it and you go, Hearts have put themselves in a great position, and they continue to do so. So, I mean, there's not really much else to say about them. As I said, as far as splitting the old firm goes, I think it's all but guaranteed. I think whether they finish first or whether they finish second, I don't actually see them finishing any lower than that. I think the only person that could finish above them is Celtic. You watch Rangers the weekend there. then it's another draw. It's more points dropped, and more points deservedly dropped as well. And that's the concerning thing. In the first half, it looked as if a Rangers that fans would enjoy. You know, it's attacking, it's fast flowing, it's not the sideways passing that we became used to in the past, kind of start the season. It was more direct, and that's what fans have been wanting to see. It's you can have 70, 75, 80% of possession, but that's not going to win you a game. People would maybe argue and say, if you've not got the ball, then you can't score. But teams are finding ways. That's the thing. There's teams with less than 20% possession. They're finding ways to score against Rangers. Um, I mean, it's a great goal by Asgard. It's what fans have been crying out for. Is seeing him being more direct, running at players, taking them on, having a shot. And the goal's an absolute joke. Like, the control to pick the ball up at halfway line, take it by two, check back on the third, and the ball bobbles up a little bit, so he catches it on a centre half volley and puts it probably as far in the top corner as you're going to see. Um, so you go in at 1-0, half time, you go perfect, the fans are happy, not much to complain about. And then in the second half, it's a 11 different bodies that came out. It looked as if it was the Rangers of the past season that we've became used to, in the sense of nervousness, sideways passing, no direction, no one want to go forward, no one to take a chance. And to be fair, that's probably also credit Jim Goodwin. He's obviously expected Rangers to set up a certain way, which probably was to keep the ball and just keep the game at a slow tempo. So Rangers probably caught Dundee United off guard with that in the way they started the game. But Dundee United, getting at half time, only 1-0 down, again, you're still in the game at 1-0 down, it doesn't matter who you're playing. Jim Goodwin's obviously had the talk with the players. He's shuffled a few things about, and then all of a sudden you're looking at it and going, well, the Rangers are still there for the taking. It doesn't evidently matter who's in charge. They're there for the taking. And the first goal for Dundee United, I think, is criminal. Again, it's a ball from wide right to wide left. No one cuts it out. No one gets out to it quick enough. And Butland should probably be doing better. But that was the story of last season. I think this season, Butland is probably been the reason that Rangers aren't actually rock bottom of the league, which is a mental statement. But I don't think you can do what he done at the end of the game. I don't think you can come out and throw your teammates under the bus. Because at the end of the day, who does that help? The fans, everyone is aware that Jack Butland's been the best player this season. Last season he took his fair share of criticism. This season, there was rumours he was going to go in the summer. He stayed. He's still the number one. He's been back to the Butland that Rangers fans were used to 2 seasons ago. But there was no defenders or midfielders or strikers coming out last season. Like Dessers could have, to be fair to him. Dessers again scored 20 league goals, and you're looking at that and going, he could have came out and said, well, you're criticising me for missing 3 or 4 chances, but you're not blaming the goalkeeper for letting one in. So I think that was a bold choice to come out. I mean, that's the third or fourth person involved with Rangers this season that's came out and threw players under the bus. So it's obviously all these new signings or something that's just not clicking. But again, I say, so Dundee United, they brought it back to one each. And then Sybil, that boy's been playing in this league for about 10, 15 years, and I've never seen him produce anything like that. Usually he's just a hothead that just wants to hit people. Or that's all I've seen anyway. I'm probably doing the boy a severe injustice, but to fucking hit a strike like that out of nowhere, I couldn't believe it. And it was that way, 2-1 to Dundee United. You're probably thinking, well, I think the game was done. I'm thinking, Rangers aren't going to get another goal. They look void of ideas. And then, out of nowhere, it gets brought back to 2 each. Probably the best piece of play we've seen from Mikey Moore since his debut. Good wing play, chasing down, holds the ball up, cuts it back. And once again, it's Tavernier with a goal. And, it's probably going to get a lot of stick, but fans love and have loved over the years to blame Tavernier for everything. and I've never understood it because at the end of the day, he makes mistakes 100%. You know, there's the old firm runs at the back post. It's became a joke and whatever else. But the things he's done for the club in the sense of it's against everyone else. It's the goals, it's the assists, it's the driving forward, it's winning penalties. It's people just assume that a captain needs to be someone that shouts at people and goes out and does this and says this and acts a certain way. He acts as a captain in the sense of dragging the club to where it is. Oh well, it's hard a fucking great place to be in, but what I mean by that is seasons gone past, games that would have lost or drew or whatever else, he's popped up with a goal. So, you know, Rangers bring it back to two each, but then again, it's there's 7, 8 minutes added on, and you just don't fancy them. That's the problem. You just don't. And again, it's the story of Rangers season. Probably in the seasons gone by, it's obviously Celtic played the following day, but it's Celtic dropping points, Rangers not capitalising. It's been the story for the last 10 years now. Um, but again, credit on the United, credit to Jim Goodwin. Um, as I say, he's reevaluated his setup, changed it, and he's walked away from Ibrox with a point, which for any side going to an old firm, no matter kind of how they're playing, to get a result is still massive for someone's season because it's not a result you expect. You know, a Dundee United's maybe looking to take points off a Kilmarnock or whatever else. So to take anything for an old firm side is just going to be an added bonus. Um, but again, it puts somehow not the most impressive result for a Dundee side in the weekend. Obviously, the only Sunday game was Celtic away to Dundee, and I think Shay and I predicted just a whitewash. I shouted at 5-0. I think Shay might have went 3 or 4. In the end, obviously 2-0 Dundee, and deservedly so. It's one of those ones where, you know, the penalty shout was there, but that wasn't until the 70th minute. It's really the first thing that Celtic kind of mustered up. I don't think anyone, even if you're someone that loves a long shot, I don't think anyone would have bet on Dundee beating Celtic. Uh, I mean, the amount of times that Shay and myself on this podcast, never mind any other podcast, have slated Stephen Presley in the sense of just Dundee instantly my favourites to go down. The recruitment, you know, the way he's been setting up his team, how negative. The list could go on, and he's walked away with 4 points from 6 against Old Firm so far. I mean that's ridiculous. And again, it's kind of like I just said about Dundee United. It's points that you wouldn't be expecting to make, so it could really help Dundee stay up. You know, I still looking at the table, I still do fancy them to go down. Whether that is, I think initially I'd say rock bottom. They might get 11th, and then you never know. They might again stay up just through the playoffs. But they're giving themselves a good fight, and that is the biggest thing. It's, as I said, everyone tipped them to essentially do the Scottish Premiership version of a Derby County, where you're looking at a potential low points tally, lowest goals scored, just everything for the wrong reasons. But again, they get their shape right. Both of the goals were well worked. You know, the second one obviously takes a deflection off Vickers, but it's to get to the byline and create that chance in the first place. And I kind of touched on it just there. The penalty shout. I'd like to wind people up and say there's no chance of a penalty. I don't think it is a penalty, but I could see why it would have been given. And that's the thing. It's the problem is with refereeing and VAR is as simple as you just don't know. You just don't know. It should be as simple as a handball is a handball, a foul's a foul, a high foot's a high foot, but it's not, and that's the thing. It's you're watching them getting given against your team one week, and then you're going into a must-win game or you're drawing whatever else the following week, and it's the exact same decision, possibly worse, and they're not being given, and that's when people historically the cliche if it balances out over a season, it might well do, but it should balance out fairly. It shouldn't be balanced out by poor decisions or people too scared to make decisions. So as I said, I don't actually think that was a penalty, but again, you've seen them given. So, if Celtic get that penalty in the 70th minute, if they make it 2-1 against Celtic over the years, and arguably still now, they've seen it doing it to the likes of Kilmarnock, is you would have probably fancied them to get something. If they get that penalty and they convert it in the 70th minute, you're fancying at least a draw. They've got 20 minutes, Dundee would have been camped at the edge of the box, and the pressure would have just been mounting and mounting and mounting. But, if buts and maybes were walking away and going, it's a great 3 points for Dundee, it's a very, very poor 3 points dropped for Celtic. Let's not kind of beat around the bush there. And as I said, it does put Hearts in a very good position. Um, you're then you're as I said, you're going into this weekend and you're now looking at it and saying Hearts, that result alone is gave Hearts a very good kind of platform where if they win at the weekend against Celtic, then again you just don't know. Again, it's a complete surprise package, and I think that's the thing. The league has shown that no team is scared of any other team, and they're willing to go out, play the football that they believe in, and basically try and get results. And you've seen that in the Motherwell Falkirk game as well. So that is the All Talk Scottish Premiership derby for anyone that hasn't been tuning in too often. So Shay's prediction was that Motherwell would get top six this season. I went bold. I went with John McGunn's Falkirk to get top six. Uh, Both of them points in the season have looked like good shouts. I think obviously at the start, Motherwell, everyone's raving about the football they're playing. They're unbeaten, albeit they were getting draws, but they were unbeaten. And it was very much a kind of unanimous feeling across not just the Motherwell fan base, but a kind of footballing fan base, that those draws were going to turn into wins. Whereas it's actually been the opposite. You're now looking at it and going, Motherwell really need to get that win. They're in desperate need for it. I checked and they were 1-0 up, and you go, Falkirk newly promoted, Motherwell, everyone's raving about them. They're 1-0, they're gonna kick on now. You didn't expect it to be a whitewash, but you thought, right, maybe a 2-0 Motherwell or a 3-1 Motherwell. But again, instead, it's another story of a tale of two halves, much the same as the Rangers game. Falkirk and going at half time, 1-0 down, they go, right, it's time to reevaluate. They look at the system, they change the shape, they come out, and they fire two past Motherwell, and you're now walking away. And as I said, if the game was to go in Motherwell's favour, Falkirk and John McGlynn are in quite a precarious situation. I don't think John McGlynn will get sacked this year, regardless of whether Falkirk go down or not, for his sheer fact of everything he's done for that club. But he would have been in a difficult situation. And that's kind of where Motherwell are, I feel. I feel as if the manager's not in doubt of losing his job or anything like that, but the pressure will start to pile up. Whether that's even just internally, whether that's just the players feeling it, the fans could be more than happy just with what they're seeing, but the players will start to feel that pressure and going, right, well, when are we going to get this one? Because we're doing everything right. We're playing the way we're told. We're getting praised by the pundits across the board, but we're not getting 3 points. And eventually, mentality wise, that will start to play on them a little bit, and it will start to say, well, what do we need to do? Do we need to change something? Does the manager need to change something? Do we need to change the players? It does open a situation where it is a little bit of pressure. But again, all credit to Falkirk. They've looked another away win. They are scoring goals, which I think was a lot of people's concern because they hadn't made a lot of signings. You're bringing a team up for the Championship. Can they really compete against the teams in the Premier League? And they are, to be fair, they're going toe to toe. Points tally is probably not everything that maybe I expected it to be, but they've had a tough run of games. They're doing what they need to do, and again, like I said, took points off a Rangers. They're now taking three off a Motherwell, so they're giving themselves a great situation. But moving on to the team that got promoted alongside Falkirk, who are in a big bit of trouble, is Livingston. So again, Hibs 4-0 going to Easter Road. It's never going to be an easy game. especially kind of probably from about the last 12 months since that kind of Aberdeen Hibs switch over that happened, which was a strange one. But, Hibs ran out 4-0 winners, deservedly so. Probably could have been more. Uh, looking back to the Hibs that we kind of seen around about January, February time. But again, it's kind of similar to Falkirk where I think Davy Martindale has too much credit in the bank where Livingston would not sack him. But, and it's a big but, is does he just walk? Whether they stay in the Premier League or not, it's when does he think he can take them so far? Derek McInnes has been saying in interviews recently that he kind of felt that way when he got his Aberdeen side, even his Kilmarnock side. It's a bit as a manager, but it's probably demoralising going, I'm bringing these players in season on season. I'm overachieving season on season. I'm watching them leave. How many times can I pull the rabbit out of the hat? How many times can I continue to surprise everyone and bring in the right replacement and change the style a little bit? Like, how it must just be exhausting. And Martindale's been at Livingston as long as I can remember now. I think he deserves a new challenge. He probably will, despite me saying that. I think he'll, out of respect to Livingston, he'll at least stay until the end of the season. But I feel as if it's David Martindale's last season at Livingston, and I think it'll be his choice. I don't think it'll be the board. But again, David Gray continues to get his plaudits, and again, rightfully so. High scoring game at the weekend as well. You look at Hibs and across the board, they do have some great players. Again, when you're looking at the situation of the Old Firm, I can't see why a David Gray and a Hibs, a Martin Boyle, whatever else, aren't getting around the players and saying, right, maybe Hearts are too far gone, but can we push for a second or third spot? Like, I think honestly, if you put enough pressure on either the Old Firm side this year, they're just going to crumble. Because there's so much turmoil between the fans, the board, the manager, and it's the same at both clubs. Whereas you're actually looking across the board, like I said, Motherwell fans, very happy with the manager, fully behind them. Falkirk, fully behind the manager, fully behind the board. Livingston, it's a little bit up in there, but I think the fans will still give David Martindale just enough. I mean, Hearts, it goes without saying. I think there's probably some Hearts fans with Tony Bloom tattoos already. Kilmarnock fans are happy what Kettlewell's doing. Dundee, again, a lot of outside noise towards Stephen Presley, but for the most part, fans seem happy. So it seems like a happy camp across the board for every Scottish side except the Old Firm. And then again, the last game, and no reason I've left this to last other than the fact it was just a 1-0. But probably as far as goals go in a 1-0 game, maybe one of the best goals you'll see. Um, I mean, it's almost a carbon copy of Dimitar Berbatov. It's the fact the ball is right on the byline, he keeps it in, and Berbatov cuts it back for Ronaldo for the one, but it's some finish by the boy. 90th minute as well, it's maybe harsh on St Mirren. You know, it's 3 seasons in a row, it's a top six finish. We were kind of debating whether they have it in the locker to do it again. I think I said they didn't. Hopefully, I say they didn't, because I don't think they do. I think it's a bit too much. I think the league looks very strong this year. Recruitment's been good, as I say. Everyone seems to be happy with the managerial choices. Not that obviously St Mirren fans aren't happy with Stephen Robinson, but again, maybe the same with David Martindale. Has he taken him as far as he can go? The only problem is I don't really know where Stephen Robinson would go. Down south, but is he going to get a championship job? I'm not entirely sure. I think it would maybe be a League One, and he's done that before. Is it worth? I would argue a step down. Some people maybe say it's a sideways step. I think it's a complete step down, especially considering how much he's loved by St Mirren fans. But the game, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to, because we do actually have some Aberdeen fans. I don't know about St Mirren, but we've had some Aberdeen fans interact over the past few months. But I don't think there's much else to say other than the fact that, Aberdeen, it's good in the sense of starting to pick up some points again. I know it's only a 1-0, but it's a goal, something they weren't doing for the start of the season. And it's if players can, sometimes you just need that. Sometimes when you aren't performing, or you're not scoring goals, whatever it may be, you do just need that little bit of magic, which obviously the boys fucking he's done tenfold. Um, and then again, we do have three Scottish teams in Europe. For anyone kind of wondering or hanging back for the predictions, they're going to be tweeted this week. We've done that when Shay done the solo recording. So we're going to tweet out our predictions for the weekend, and we might get a wee kind of bonus tweet as well for the European games. So we do have two early kickoffs. The first one is AEK Athens versus Aberdeen. Aberdeen are away. I actually do fancy Aberdeen. Um, Maybe a draw, but I do actually think they'll get a win. I think, as I say, they're starting to show just a little bit of form. You know, it's not much, but they're starting to click. At the end of the day, they brought in a bunch of new players as well. A lot of them made a Carlson. You know, Armstrong's back in the league. Nisbet, I think there's some serious players that in Europe as well. When teams want to come out and attack, I think Aberdeen will stand strong. So I do fancy Aberdeen tomorrow. And then the other early game is Rangers versus Bran. I can't say I know too much about Bran if I'm being honest, but I do know enough about Rangers, and I'm just at a point where I'm just at fucking I'm losing the will, man. Um, you know, it's you look at Rangers in Europe over the years, and it's basically an all. It's a formality that they're going to make it through the group stages. Whereas you look at this season, and in my head it was still going to be a formality because I looked at the draw that we had compared to the previous seasons, and I thought it's by far Rangers' easiest draw. And then they go out and they get 0 for 6 points. So it's just instantly not worth it. So there's nothing to play for tomorrow as far as Rangers go. They'll go away to Bran. You know, it's Danny Rose first, or Rule. It's his first, kind of game in charge. It'll be interesting to see who he starts. I don't think you'll see he's only been in the door, 24 hours. You're not going to see what he wants to do, how he wants to set up. But what you will see is, who he likes and who he's seen has impressed him in training over the couple of days. So that'll be a telling thing, is who his kind of first 11 will be. But as far as performance goes, I don't expect anything, if I'm being honest. I think Bran will win that. And then the third team is Celtic versus Sturm Graz. Sturm Graz, one of the teams that Rangers did in fact play. Sturm Graz did not impress me at all. They looked very, very poor. Somehow Rangers were worse, which took some doing. So those Celtic are on a rocky patch right now, and they've also not done great in Europe this season. Well, in the last 10 seasons, sorry. Is I actually think Celtic will win. I do. I think watching Sturm Graz, I said against Rangers, did not impress me at all. I think Celtic, they do have a point to prove. There will continue to be protests. There will continue to be a little bit of backlash. But at the end of the day, it's 11 players in the park that are going to win you the game. And I think Celtic will have enough. I think Ian Atchell's actually looked like a good signing since he came in. I know he took a lot of criticism. Kieran Tierney probably will start. I would like to see Celtic doing the point of free at the back system tomorrow night. Again, I don't think they will. You've seen them change to it. I actually suggested in pre-season on one of the podcasts that I think Celtic would be better at free at the back. Something that we both, Shay and I, admittedly said that Celtic have never done, or not within recent time. And then apparently I should have a Celtic job because a couple of times this season they've went to free at the back. No more than against Braga. So I think that you'll see a free at the back at some point tomorrow, whether they start the game like that or whether they switch into it. But I do see Celtic taking, the kind of 3 points in Europe tomorrow. And then I think obviously it would be a massive, may not to, again, just maybe wrap it round. It will be, obviously, as you can tell, just because it's myself. I don't, Shay and I usually kind of bounce off each other, have a wee bit of conversation about other things. It is a much shorter episode, so I do apologise for that. So just kind of before I do leave is to touch on where I kind of think the managerial situations are. I said ran through the rest of the league, but I think Rodgers will, at this rate, he'll be lucky to make it to Christmas. Actually, no, that's ridiculous because the reason I'm thinking that is because of results. But the reason I think it's ridiculous is because you're seeing the Celtic board are very penny pinching. They're very reluctant to part ways with any sort of money. So if they know Brendan Rodgers, if they feel the league is done come Christmas, which obviously the fans won't accept, but if they both feel the league is done, they're not going to then pay the compensation for Rodgers. They'll just go, right, you know what, just wind down your contract and then we'll bring someone in the summer. So I think somehow Brendan Rodgers' job is safe because, again, he's not going to walk. I'd imagine there's probably one of those kind of balloon payments he'll get at the end of his contract if he stays. So I don't see him walking. I actually see Rodgers seeing the season out. And then, as I said, Rangers finally did appoint a manager, Danny Fool. It's a fucking incredible pronunciation, by the way, for anyone that's still watching this. But I mean, the situation we're at as well is just laughable. There's obviously some severe issues going on behind the scenes, which is ridiculous because that was meant to be the whole point of takeover in the summer was meant to be the shambles behind the scenes were no longer existing. You know, you remember Gerrard when he won the league, obviously in the interview saying you have to fix the roof when the sun's still shining. The board didn't back him, didn't fix the roof. You know, it's fucking absolutely pissing through now. Everything's soaked, everything's ruined. Um, and you thought that was over. You thought with the takeover in the summer, that was it. Everything was repaired. All the relationships between anyone that was any burnt bridges, everything was fine. Fresh starts. You then have the fucking disaster of Russell Martin, which you maybe go, do you know what? You can make mistakes. You can appoint the wrong manager. Every football club in the world's done it. But then you go into a 2 week period where you're going, right, well, you've got 2 weeks now to fix what you fucked up. Firstly, the board seen the way that Russell Martin was getting treated by the fans, so they should have had something planned, whether it was, right, we need a replacement in October, we need a replacement in January, we need a replacement end of the season, or we don't need a replacement. They should have had a fallback, a kind of disaster plan. They evidently didn't, because they approached Gerrard, it comes out the time is not right. They approached Muscat, the time's not right. In between this time, ruled himself out, and then all of a sudden he's a manager. So, I mean, there's been a couple of press conferences since things have been said, but it's, you know, Kevin Farewell, Mick Stewart, Kavanagh, the manager himself. It's so difficult. Who do you believe? What do you believe? Does anyone believe it anymore? I honestly, I couldn't tell you. So I could honestly, this could probably take about an hour and a half an hour run on this. I'll try my best to wrap it there. So as I said, the European predictions for tomorrow and the weekend game predictions will be up on Twitter for anyone that's looking for them. We will be back to normal as of next week in the sense of Shay and I will be back and just in time as well. It is Cup semi-final weekend next weekend, so it's going to be a good episode. There'll be a lot to talk about. And again, if anyone's got kind of suggestions, any questions, feel free to obviously you can reply to us on Twitter, you can reply to TikTok, or you could message one of us directly as well. I'm more than happy with that. So again, I apologise for it being a shorter episode, but it can't be helped. And everyone, please wish Shay a happy birthday. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week.